Ladies and gentlemen, in our lives, we will encounter things that we don't really understand. Could be some sort of odd fine dining cuisine, could be some sort of classical music or a sport that everybody seems to be crazy about that you just don't quite like. Well, for me personally, it's sometimes going to an art museum. And everybody's looking around going, wow, the colors and the textures and the historical context is so fascinating. And I'm looking at it like, I feel like the average 6-year-old could have made that, no disrespect whatsoever. But also, the game of chess in and of itself is absolutely fascinating. And sometimes we like to watch grandmaster level games. We don't understand them. We like to watch low elo games. We also don't understand those. And today's video, if you're lucky enough to be catching it, is in the middle of the candidates tournament. If you're just watching this 6 months in the future because it got recommended to you by the YouTube algorithm, welcome. We're going to be covering a game today that was sent to me in my Discord, and one of these players actually deleted their account shortly after this game was played. That's how bad this game was. That's how much it affected them mentally. This is the How to Lose at Chess playlist, and it is an absolutely beautiful thing. Both players have been given honorary Grandmaster titles. These are not real. Germany versus France, looking like a World Cup matchup, and the game begins with e4, c5. And it doesn't take long for us to have our first WTF moment. It's actually on move 2. All right, in this position, white has a couple of moves, but in general, in the opening, you should be moving your knights or your pawns before anybody else. White here plays bishop b5. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. I have no idea why white played that move at all. You can't even suggest it's, black will accidentally blunder their king. Chess.com will literally not let you make this move. Chess.com will just hold you back. And also, isn't the bishop just simply going to be a target? And that's exactly what black does. Black just says, all right, well, I'm just going to attack your bishop now. White goes back to c4. What? I mean, you could have just went there in the first place. Okay, whatever. And not to mention, the bishop could actually get trapped if you're not careful. Now the bishop's just completely lost, right? So bishop c4, and black should now develop one of the knights. Black plays the move knight to f6. White plays knight to c3, and now I love the move here from black, e6. Pawns are like building blocks, and together they will support neighbor pawns to advance forward. And because white put the bishop onto c4 square, in the Sicilian, it can very easily be slapped around with the move d5. White develops the other knight to f3. We're kind of more or less back to normal territory already. Black is winning on move 5. Black is winning on move 5 because the d-pawn can simply go here. Well, just be very, very happy, right? I mean, that's sort of the idea. And then once again, when this exchange happens, the bishop could accidentally get trapped on the side of the board. But black here plays the move b5, and now white has an option. White can either return home to safety to one of these squares, preferably not that one, because there's no point blocking your own castle, but you definitely shouldn't go to b3, because I just showed the audience, multiple times in fact, how your bishop could get trapped, and your bishop will be trapped in front of all your other pieces if the enemy pawns can entomb it. Be careful of that happening. This is why you don't provoke black into doing all of this. And so understanding that the bishop will be trapped if it goes to b3, white retreats the bishop to d3 instead. So white is playing an intelligent game of chess. Black plays c4, continues to chase the bishop. We already have a super goofy position. Bishop goes to e2, and now black, again, should be, finishing development or taking some more center space. But black can't help themselves. b4. We're running down the side of the board, attacking all the pieces that we can. White knight undevelops. And you know why white is, getting into all this trouble? Because white moved the bishop once, twice, thrice, and 4 times in the first 7 moves. The bishop literally touched every square backwards. What? Why? Okay, whatever. We've lost the pawn. Now, we could take the pawn. It's not too late to move the bishop. What? What even is the move d3? I mean, it's just a free pawn. d3, the thing that you could take will now take you. Okay, fantastic. Here, okay, the knight is hanging. The knight can either be defended or move. It moves. And now the bishop moves yet again. The bishop has now moved 6 times in the first 11 moves. b5, c4, e2, d3, d3, c4. Maybe we're going to go to b5 as well. Black, by the way, can here play d5, just a tempo-winning move, developing a pawn, and the bishop will have to move yet again. But instead of that, in this position, you know, black can develop and castle. Black does develop. Absolutely, black develops by losing the game in one move. Black is now completely lost, because if you are paying attention, that's just a free bishop. I mean, there's just a piece that can just go straight down and just grab the bishop. Black literally just serves the bishop up on a silver platter. Now, I want you to just keep an eye on that bishop. If I were to tell you, because, you know, you're watching this video, this move did not happen, right? But, like, what looks like a natural move here for white if that move didn't happen? Just, like, what do you think? Like, what will white do here? What would you do here? Well, you say, castle. Correct. You say, develop my bishop, attack the queen. Yes. Develop my bishop here. Yes. Well, I can't go here, so knight bd2. Sure. White plays the move a3. Excuse me? Black plays a move that makes even less sense. I mean, you see the a-pawn, you're like, well, I should just take, right? I mean, right? I mean, I don't know what white's idea here was. Probably just a fair trade. Black plays this. Okay, so first of all, the bishop is still hanging. That's now 2 moves in a row. But white, of course, sees this and just takes. Okay, fantastic. Well, that little commotion is finished, right? Now, it's black's turn to make a move. Maybe black sees that the bishop is hanging and finally moves it out of the way. No, that obviously doesn't happen. Maybe black defends the bishop. No. Okay, no. This is just one thing in the position that will just stick around, okay? But, of course, develop a knight, castle, develop a bishop, maybe bring the queen out. Black here plays g5. Why? I will show you why. First of all, for a 3rd or 4th move in a row, that's just hanging. Well, white's like, hey, that's a free pawn. And black's like, aha! You have activated my trap card of being dead lost. Rook g8. Now, rook g8 is a really interesting move. The idea was obviously to sacrifice the g-pawn to open up the rook. However, there is just still a hanging bishop, so your plan is completely null and void. And second of all, I can go like queen h5, and I mean, I can just use the fact that you've given me the g5 square and attack you on f7, right? I mean, like, I don't have to retreat. You're not even really attacking me because I'm defended, and at the end of the day, there's this. But white, being, you know, a good 700, says, well, my knight's under attack, even though it wasn't, because the queen could have taken it, but maybe white didn't even see the bishop was defending it, and white retreats. Now, the person playing with black here obviously played rook g8 in order to open the file and swoop down to g2 and take the pawn, right? I mean, any logical player, after sacrificing their g-pawn and attacking on the g-file, will follow the path and grab the pawn. No, queen f6. Okay. So, for like the 7th move in a row or 23rd move in a row, queen takes d6 is still absolutely on the board, but white does not do that. Now, what does white do? Well, we just moved our knight out of the way, right? Because we didn't want it to get captured. So, since we moved our knight back, maybe it's time to castle, since we're not going to take the bishop. No, we're going to move another piece to g5. But you literally just retreated the knight. I mean, was the idea to do this? First of all, it can be taken. Second of all, if you follow the queen's path to b2, it will just simply capture. No. This, it turns out, is black's master plan. Black's master plan is for white to castle and probably get checkmated on g2. I have absolutely no evidence whatsoever if that was black's plan. But let's just say that was black's plan. Let's just say black sacked and is like, oh, when they castle, I'm gonna... You know, this is why you folks get stuck at 700, because your plans are so absurd. You're not paying attention to the fact that your opponent is sitting across from you going, wait, I mean, there's like a lot better moves than that. Now, in this position, for like the 38th time, the queen can take, and it's really bad because this is there and this is mate. So it's like, it's a worst case scenario for black. And white finally realizes that the queen can move and plays queen to c2. Queen to c2. Okay, so now the advantage is like back within 1, which is basically equal. Black now plays bishop b7, developing the bishop. I don't hate this move. And white retreats to defend the bishop I mean, defending the bishop's attack on the knight, even though it was already defended. Now, amazingly, this is seeking to remove the defender of this. Let's not forget, the only reason you can't take the bishop is because the white knight guards it. So if this takes here, right? So white goes here. Now, I'm not sure if if this all happened deliberately, but watch what happens here. Bishop takes. White is a genius. I mean, Tony deserves some credit here for realizing that in the other version of this, had Tony taken with the pawn, you know, Tony would just lose the bishop. I mean, that's really impressive that Tony saw that he can retreat, capture, and counterattack the rook, so that if queen takes g5 happens, as it does in the game, he grabs himself a... What? Tony, are you out of your mind? First of all, what was even the entire idea of this? I mean, hello? You have the same piece. It's the same piece on the diagonal. Tony! But also, what is g3? What are you defending? Tony, the bishop is protecting this. Did Tony think that he was getting mated? He's not getting mated. What is he doing? g3. Knight c6. And, you know, it seems like Tony has a blind spot, right? Like, if we back up a couple of times, Tony's been missing long moves. Queen d6, you know, a little bit later, Tony misses bishop 8. So Tony obviously has a little bit of a blind spot, right? Evidently not. Evidently he doesn't, because he notices that a pawn is hanging on literally the opposite corner of the board. I mean, Tony doesn't castle, doesn't develop his knight, doesn't take a free rook, but sees that. Now we have this, and folks, at 700 level, it's kind of like when toddlers see another kid doing something, so then they yell. They're like, yeah, but he's doing it. I want to do it too. So when someone castles, you know what happens? You know what you do as a 700? You go, oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah, I forgot that I could do that, dude. And I'm also gonna... Okay. Black plays the move, knight takes pawn. I mean, this perhaps is the most logical sequence of the game. Knight takes pawn, rook moves out of the way. Fantastic. Okay, so black is up 2 points of material. That means that black is up a knight for 1 pawn. Black also has other benefits of this position, like the fact that there could be an avalanche of an attack down the h-file, but black does have one problem. The one problem black has is a little bit of a weak king. This pawn is unguarded, so if the queen can get in there, it's very important. In chess, of course, material and king safety are the two most important things. Black is winning on material, but not really winning on king safety, because this king actually does have a lot of protection around it. And so in this position, it's imperative that black maintains the queen, like protects against the queen infiltrating with a move like f5, but that's very difficult to find. And black instead plays knight d2, which in and of itself is not an awful move. We now have a trade of knights. It's not a terrible thing. But you know, now the computer already thinks that there are some problems here because this bishop is still loose for like the 48th time. Queen comes back to e4 here, and just when I was giving credit to the players for playing a couple of logical moves in a row, you know, queen e4, knight b3, knight d2, like good moves. Queen e4 brings back, but luckily this is defend, right? So we don't have to do anything about that. We could potentially attack the queen. We could potentially give the king a little bit more protection. We can offer a queen exchange. Always remember, you're up some material, trade some queens, because then your opponent can't checkmate you, right? Unless, of course, you're attacking them. So, queen e4 gets played, and black blunders checkmate in one move. I mean, like, you could not have made this any more obvious. Like, you really just couldn't have. You couldn't have. You just couldn't have. Like, the queen teams up with the bishop, and black plays the move knight to e5 in this position. That's what black plays. Black plays knight to e5. All right? Black spent 17 seconds on knight to e5. White proceeds to spend 5 seconds on the next move. I'm not joking. 5. White spends 5 seconds on the next move and plays rook to d1. Yeah. Rook to d1, which by itself is not the worst move in the world, but it's an awful move considering you literally just teamed up 2 pieces and it's mate. I mean, it's just mate. It's mate. But it's not a terrible move. Knight takes bishop check, queen takes, and finally, we might see the winning of the bishop in the corner. Now, you'll notice it's +5. Why is it +5? It's actually not +5 because of this move. It's +5 because of this. The idea is to put a rook on c1, and black's king just cannot be defended. Like, I've mentioned that the king safety is everything. If you try to defend the king, it's made in a few moves with rook c1, and that's it. I mean, the queen sacrifices. This is checkmate. Like, black just straight up loses the game. So, yeah, but now white plays rook takes d6. Now it's game on. I mean, now black's king is just exposed completely. White is a few moves away from winning the game. Black plays the move here, rook to h8, threatening this, and it's mate in 7. Now, you don't have to see mate in 7, but you should try to create some threats on the opponent, you know, by giving checks. And then maybe giving another check, and then maybe giving another check, and then maybe giving another check, like here. And then you see what happens, and you accidentally get a checkmate. I mean, you just accidentally stumble into a checkmate, right? It's just give some checks. But okay, you know, white is a logical player. White sees his threat, so white defends it. I mean, can you really blame white for playing the move h4? No, the white king is very safe. Queen to c1 check, king goes to h2, and black plays the move rook to h6. Now, again, it's +8 because the king is wide open. So for example, here, if white were to play rook takes a6, it's not +8 anymore, it's only +6, but the attack is massive. I mean, rook a8 is coming, right? The only issue really for white is this rook. It's sort of stranded, which is why the computer here likes the move b3 to bring the rook back. Or play queen e4 and get the rook to c2, for example, right? That's the idea, because this king is totally safe. What does white play? Rook d1. Do I hate this move? No, it's a great move, teaming up the rooks. We have this move, and now, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is finally time to bring the rook back and attack on the c-file. This rook has been locked away in purgatory, and it's time to break it out. All right? We're breaking the rook out of jail, and it's going to join us on our mission. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you I mean, this is a joke, right? You just went to rescue the rook by putting your other rook in jail? Now neither of the rooks can move. One physically cannot move. This one can't move because... What? Why? Why would you play rook da1? You know how much time white spent on the move rook da1? You want to know how much time white spent on that move? 8 seconds. White has 7.5 minutes on the clock and spent 8 seconds on this move. Why not just go here? I mean, what? What is this? Where are the rooks going? You now have 2 rooks less. And here, white does something unforgivable. White offers a queen trade. Now, not only does white have no attack. For example, it's not too late to play queen e3, hitting the rook, and then pinning the queen to the king. That's what you should be looking for. You should not be looking to play defense. This is what you should be looking for. Instead of that, white tries to trade the queens. How does black respond to trading the queens? With the move rook to f6. Hanging the rook to the queen move that you just made. White responds by playing rook f1, which blunders 2 rooks at the same time. 2. It hangs this and this. I guarantee you white did not realize that there was a pin. All right? Listen, I've seen enough. I know for a fact white did not realize the queen was pinned to the king. All right? Maybe white did. Maybe white is a genius. But if white realized that the queen is pinned and cannot take either of these rooks, then why didn't white see this? I mean, you literally just moved there. Rook to f6. You just, boop. No, rook f1. Okay, terrific. King b8. Now we have a queen trade. Terrific. Wonderful stuff. Yes, great. b4. You'll notice that b4 is actually a big mistake because en passant. But these are uncultured players, right? There's no en passant. I mean, how does a French person not play en passant? It's literally French. e5. And now we have a rook endgame. All right? Rook c2, rook d4. a4. We have a 2-on-1 majority, right? 4 pawns versus 5. This is winning for white for a very important reason. White has what's just called an outside pass pawn, and it's defended. So slowly, white should make some progress up the side of the board, and black will have to kind of sit back and defend. So we have rook b6. And white, of course, should attack the other pawns. b5. No, we don't attack the pawn. We lose a pawn to attack the rook. Now the rook stops our pawn. We are now no longer up a pawn, and we are losing. Rook e1, we attack this pawn. Black here, fantastic move. Doesn't want to lose the pawn, f6, beautiful move. I love this move by white to try to break up the structure. e4, and now we've gone running. takes h6. Oh my goodness, is the pawn gonna sneak past the guard of 2 rooks? King c7, the pawn is on h7, one of the rooks has gotta go, and it goes. All right, rook b2. Now what I would have liked to see is rook h1, rook h8, and king g2 to try to defend the pawn, but instead of that, the pawn just dies. Rook takes b5, rook h7. So now the king has to slide out of the way, and the endgame will proceed a little bit longer. Right now, black is up a pawn, but the pawns are a little bit split, kind of difficult for black to defend them. So we have king to g2, black gives a check, and of course the king has to go to the back rank. Now, if you go to g1, you're safe, because this rook can't come down, but the game ends with king f1, rook h1, and black won by checkmate. And then proceeded to delete their chess.com account.